It's most likely that the MCU and Marvel Studios will never reach the heights of Endgame once again. $3 billion worldwide, an entire audience just waiting on pins and needles. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with the Infinity Saga, the very final chapter, as you led up to it in like 20 movies or something like that, and it really just worked. Marvel has tried to recreate this. It has not worked out in Phase 4. We're in the early parts of Phase 5. It does not appear that it's going to get much better. But one thing is for certain, Marvel will never sniff those heights again if they don't make changes. They don't course correct from the idea that they need to have so much content that it overwhelms the audience, where you have 5, 6 shows on Disney Plus a year, 5 or 6 movies coming out a year. It's almost impossible to keep up with. So they're making massive changes. We've already heard Bob Iger say, we're going to make less MCU content with less money, lower budgets on all the films, and we're going to make less of them. They're also purging out a lot of the bad content that was supposed to go out on Disney Plus. We've got rumors of a couple of shows that have already been canceled. We've got rumors of a couple of movies that might have been canceled, but we do have definitive information regarding Daredevil Born Again, which I guess was the breaking point for Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios, where they said, no, this is not going to work. We know we've shot like half the season, but this is no bueno. Daredevil is an important character. This actually worked on Netflix, and we are screwing the pooch, and we're going to have to take decisive action. And we do have the details on what those are going to be. Marvel Studios' Daredevil television series has a new creative team, Dario Scardapane, whose recent credits include Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, as well as Netflix's The Marvel show The Punisher, has been tapped to act as the new showrunner for the series, which is in the midst of a creative overhaul. Additionally, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, the co-directing team behind indie genre thrillers, who are coming off of directing episodes of Loki Season 2, have been hired to helm the remaining episodes that will constitute the first season on Disney+. The hiring of a showrunner is part of Marvel's larger overhaul of how it makes its television series. The company previously made its shows much like it made movies, but as The Hollywood Reporter previously reported, Marvel has reconfigured its model, embracing traditional TV concepts such as showrunners and pilots and series bibles. And I think these are all really good ideas and changes. Well, they're not so much like good new ideas. These are ideas that have been in television for like, 50 years or whatever, but it's good that they're treating MCU shows on Disney Plus as television. As far as Dario Scardapane goes, if I was going to hire somebody associated with the Netflix shows, like that Daredevil universe on Netflix, it probably wouldn't have been the person responsible for The Punisher, which isn't Iron Fist bad. It's not Defenders bad, but it wasn't nearly as good as the first 2 seasons of Daredevil, which I thought were absolutely bulletproof. Those were brilliant. That's what you hope Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios are able to capture and actually replicate over on Disney Plus with Daredevil Born Again. But he has worked on a lot of programs. Apparently, he was a journalist. He became a screenwriter. He worked on Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, which is actually one of the cooler things that they've done on Amazon. I think it's Amazon Prime. But he's worked on a few other shows, a lot of them like thrillers type of things, which I do think will service the character of Daredevil and the story of Born Again. Whatever that story ends up being, hopefully it's not what they originally intended it to be, because it sounded like we weren't going to get much Daredevil and it's going to be much more of a focus on Matt Murdock, the lawyer, which is absolutely key and central to a Daredevil comic book series, television series, a Daredevil movie. But that's like, his day-to-day persona. That's not the hero persona. The real hero is Daredevil protecting the people of Hell's Kitchen. And I think a transition back into featuring Daredevil as the headliner of the Daredevil TV show is probably the right way to go. But at least you're getting somebody that has had success in television with some of these characters. We do know that the Punisher is returning for Daredevil Born Again, and that's going to be a key part of that. And he's already going to have worked with a lot of these actors and concepts and stuff like that. But these are just the very first changes in what is likely to be major changes, especially with Disney Plus MCU shows. In fact, there are some rumors out there, and these seem to be a little bit more credible based on the information that we have that aren't even talking about these going away. It's now claimed the Wonder Man series is getting canceled along with additional MCU projects, which follows the news of the recent Daredevil Born Again debacle that is seeing the series get retooled. The info comes from the writer of the MCU Reign of Marvel Studios, Joanna Robinson, who also said Kevin Feige wasn't involved with the MCU on Disney Plus and made it sound as if Feige never wanted the MCU on Disney Plus, but was forced by Disney to do so. Marvel Studios recently announced a new release schedule for the MCU on Disney Plus, where both Wonder Man and Ironheart didn't have release dates. This is probably the right move, and I would be very surprised if we ever see a Wonder Man series. Of all the characters that Marvel has that would be cool, even if they aren't like A tier, B tier, even if they're more obscure, Wonder Man's all right, but he doesn't scream, yeah, we need to get a television show featuring Wonder Man. There just aren't a whole lot of Wonder Man fans out there. They don't even make Wonder Man comic books for a reason, because there just isn't a whole lot of interest in the character. There's not a lot of people out there going, Wonder Man, Wonder Man. You know, if you wanted a character kind of like that, you know, Miracle Man would be a much better choice. But Wonder Man was always a bad idea. It's a bad idea like Echo was a bad idea. It's a bad idea like Agatha Harkness is a bad idea. It's a bad idea like Ironheart is a bad idea. Like, it's a worse idea than Miss Marvel. And we saw what happened with Miss Marvel on Disney Plus. It was the lowest viewed MCU show on Disney Plus in history. And they put it on ABC, and it absolutely got blitzed by reruns of fucking Shark Tank. And I like Shark Tank, but this was stuff that a vast majority of the ABC audience had never even had access to. It was showing for the first time, and nobody cared there either, because nobody really cares about Miss Marvel, and less people care about Wonder Man than Miss Marvel. That's how bad of an idea it was. That's likely going to happen. I will also be very surprised if we ever see Ironheart. Ironheart never worked in comic books, never worked as a replacement for Tony Stark. I know we've got to have new, more diverse gender, like different gender characters of all the mainline MCU heroes, and we're moving into all new, all different. It was a terrible idea just to put the character into the Black Panther movie, where she was completely redundant to Shuri, was a stupid plot element, and was completely unlikable, just like in the comic books. They didn't fix Riri Williams like they kind of fixed Kate Bishop Hawkeye in that Hawkeye series, but they completely forgot they needed to fix Riri Williams Ironheart for the Black Panther movie. And then the idea that this was just going to launch out into a TV show or a streaming show on Disney Plus that anyone cared about is just fool's gold. It's snake oil. It was never going to happen. So in my opinion, you will likely never see those shows. And if you even do, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios will absolutely regret it, because no one cares about Wonder Man. I'll be shocked if we ever see that character. And nobody really cares about Ironheart. I'll be far less shocked if we do see that character. There's more of a chance we get an Ironheart show than a Wonder Man show. But if they're smart, they probably shouldn't do either of them. They've had all these problems out there. I think they're going to learn a hard lesson with Echo, that, you know, just because you put the Marvel Studios name on it and they were in a movie or a show associated with a popular character doesn't mean dick. If people don't like the character and they're not invested in the character, and nobody's invested in Riri Williams, just like Wonder Man, just like Echo and a lot of these other characters, just like Agatha Harkness. These are all bad ideas. There are some rumors about movies being canceled, which would be a little bit different. You know, it does feel like they're cleaning house with their television, at least the way that they're producing it for Disney Plus. Empire City Box Office on Twitter says both Blade and Thunderbolts are now in the crosshairs, with the latter no longer happening. Hearing that Disney and Marvel Studios are not moving forward with the Thunderbolts once the strike is over this week. Also hear that Blade is in serious jeopardy as well, states the tweet. While Scooper Daniel RPK did reply to the tweet noting not true. Could these projects be in trouble? Me personally, I do not think these projects probably are in trouble. It's more likely to be Blade, because that one isn't as far along in production, and we've heard all the problems that are around Blade. They've already gotten rid of everyone associated with it. They got rid of the writers, they got rid of the director, they got rid of all those people, and they keep coming back to Mahershala Ali, who's supposed to be Blade in this reboot of the franchise, and saying, hey, these are our ideas, these are our concepts, this is what we have so far. And he's like, no, this isn't good. And that one seems like it's much more in jeopardy of not happening. But I will be absolutely shocked if we don't see an MCU Blade movie. Sure, the first Blade film isn't part of the MCU, but it certainly was a proof of concept that you could make Marvel comic book movies and have them be very successful, and certainly led into the Incredible Hulk movie, the Iron Man movie. There's another one that was planned that never happened. Blade was the testing ground for that, and they got a trilogy out of it. It was very successful, although the third movie was absolutely terrible. You know, I feel like they probably think they have to make a Blade movie because it almost feels foolproof. They do like to play on member berries. They like to give you things that you've already seen and liked before. And a lot of people have seen Blade, and they certainly liked it with Wesley Snipes. Now, will they like it with Mahershala Ali? That's to be determined. And Thunderbolts, where the Scooper is stating that it's not happening, I would be surprised about that one, because you have some major characters that have been successful in the MCU so far. In that one, you do have the Winter Soldier in there. You do have the White Widow, whatever her name is, Yelena, whatever that lady's name is. You do have like the evil version of Captain America from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And you do have the dude from Stranger Things being the Red Guardian or whatever. I can't remember his name either. So there is some actual star power already associated with that project, and it does have a release date at the end of 2024, although they've also replaced their writers as well, because apparently the script just wasn't up to snuff. And it sounds like a recurrent problem with Disney and Marvel Studios is they're not hiring the right people from the get-go, which really wasn't a problem before. The only time in phases 1 through 3 that you ever heard about like them replacing a director really was for Ant-Man, where what was the name? Peyton, I can't remember. The original guy that was going to do it, he ended up leaving the project because it took too long, and I think they brought in that Peyton guy to finish it up. It ended up still being a good movie because they had a good concept to go with the character or whatever. But that's really the only time they had lots of problems with scripts or lots of problems with the production of the movie. And now it feels like every single thing they do post phase 3 has a problem. They're having to replace the writers. They're having to replace the directors. You know, Multiverse of Madness. You have Sam Raimi coming at the last minute. You're talking about major script rewrites all over the place, having to do multiple reshoots to fix the endings to all these movies. And it almost feels like Kevin Feige took his eye off the ball and forgot that quality comes first. And they went out of their way to go hire the most diverse array of directors and writers they could get their hands on, but they forgot, hey, this is an enormous action franchise that brings in billions of dollars. You know, these aren't documentary films that we're going after. These aren't feminist propaganda movies that we're going after with really, really small niche audiences that don't have budgets that get into the 200s and sometimes $300 million. And I think Kevin Feige is going to have to do a course correction. It sounds like that's already happening. They did wipe out a lot of the writers and brought people with proven track records in on these projects, and we'll see what happens. But I do believe, I just have a belief that we will see Thunderbolts. We will see a Blade movie. I don't think we'll see Wonder Man. I don't think we'll see Ironheart. And hopefully this new revamp on Daredevil goes well, because it was a fiasco. And it seems to have sparked a real interest in Kevin Feige to kind of clean house and start producing television the right way, which it sounds like he never really wanted to do in the first place. So a lot of lessons learned, and Daredevil Born Again was really the catalyst that kicked off a lot of these big time changes, because it was an absolute shit show. There's also a link in the video description.